SteamWorld Heist 2 is the shining example of what a sequel should be, improving upon just about every aspect of the original game, which came out 9 years ago if you can believe that. We've had a lot of SteamWorld games since then, so the wait wasn't too painful, but it was still nice to see them come out with a sequel to this rather unique turn-based strategy game. Even still, the story in this game is mostly standalone. It makes some references to previous games since every SteamWorld game is connected, so you can go into this game not having played the first one, although I do recommend it. This sequel is set in a region called the Great Sea, and it focuses on Captain Leeway and his crew of steambots as they try to find out what in this region is causing a water crisis. After all, these are steam-powered robots and they need water to survive. The story in SteamWorld Heist 2 is much more in-depth and interesting than it ever was in the first game, which is understandable there because they were focusing more on the unique gameplay rather than the narrative, but here it feels like there are actual stakes at play, and we get some great character development from the protagonist, seeing him go through self-doubt as a captain while also building his relationships with each of his crew members. It's nothing revolutionary, but it doesn't have to be. I'm just glad the characters here have more depth than the ones in the first SteamWorld Heist. It really felt like I was on a journey with these characters throughout my 24-hour playthrough, and by the time I was finished with it, I could honestly feel the relief that they felt finishing their long and arduous mission. And that's right, I said 24-hour runtime. This game is quite long. I would say it's twice as long as the first SteamWorld Heist, so I wouldn't go into this game expecting to finish it within a few days. It's going to take you quite a bit longer, and thankfully this review period was very generous, offering me more than enough time to finish the story as well as play some side objectives, because as long as this game is, it could be even longer if you decide to explore the entire map, which the main quest does not require you to do. The developers have said that there's over 35 hours of content here, so if you do buy this game, you will more than get your money's worth when it comes to the sheer amount of what you could do here. But now let's get to the gameplay itself. Once again, this is a turn-based strategy game, but not the ordinary kind you might be used to from games like XCOM, Mario Rabbids, stuff like that. This has been described as a Ricochet turn-based strategy game because just about every character is equipped with a gun or projectile weapon like a rocket launcher, and when it's their turn, they have to take careful aim at an enemy or group of enemies and fire away. The thing is, most of these weapons do ricochet off of surfaces, so if you're equipped with a sniper rifle or any other scoped weapon, you could bounce bullets off of walls and hit enemies behind cover. This works for some non-scoped weapons, but it's just way easier once you do have that scope because the game draws out a path for where that bullet is going to go. This was the case with the first SteamWorld Heist, but there have now been significant improvements from that first game. For one, you don't get penalized for losing a battle. It's not like the first game where you lose a ton of water currency, which I always found extremely unfair. What I also found unfair about that first game was if somebody died during a mission, that character would not earn any XP. Now if that happens here, they earn some, but not as much as they would earn if they hadn't died. And instead of starting a mission over after a failure, there is a checkpoint system where you could load back 2 turns. It still doesn't guarantee success, but it's way better than nothing. It even saved me a few times. What might be the biggest change though is the class-based system. Of course, each character has a starting class like a machine gunner, a sniper, or a mechanic, but now each and every character can be equipped with any of those classes. So say you equip a submachine gunner with a rocket launcher. Well, now they're a part of that class, but they can also equip a limited amount of power-ups from other classes that they've had before. For example, an engineer could build cover in front of them with a free turn. So if I decided to play as a sniper that previously used to be an engineer, I could still have that specific engineer ability among others. It's limited by the amount of cogs each character has, but it's still a really handy feature, especially because each class has a level cap of 5, so it just gives you more of a reason to keep building up each character. Of course, if this sounds like a lot to keep track of, that's because it kind of is. This is where I feel like SteamWorld Heist 2 could have scaled back a bit on these level up features. So in this game, Captain Leeway and his crew are on a submarine most of the time, and in that submarine there are so many menus and options to upgrade your character's different abilities, and there are so many to the point where it's easy to forget about them. There are menus to customize your submarine, upgrade your characters, upgrade certain character abilities, upgrade parts of the submarine that also upgrade your characters. There's just so many to keep track of, and I feel like this could have been streamlined, or some of them could have been cut completely. Even the characters switching classes felt like a lot to keep track of, so in the end I mainly just stuck with the character's original class. I never really changed them that much, and I didn't feel like I had a lesser experience because of it. Going back to the submarine, this is how you traverse the massive world. The submarine begins quite limited, it can't even go underwater yet until you hit a specific point in the story, but as it gets better, you can equip it with all kinds of weapons for above and underwater. So when you run into enemies, the weapons go off automatically and aim at them automatically, and all you would need to know is how to dodge and use your boost appropriately so you can survive these battles. It does make upgrading the sub feel way more rewarding, as the more powerful gear you get, it makes these battles a breeze, and even though it can be really simple at times, I still found them very much enjoyable, much like I enjoyed the rest of SteamWorld Heist 2. Let it be known, this game is fantastic. It is the shining example of what a sequel should set out to do. Yes, it has been 9 years since the first game, so they seemingly had a lot of time to figure out how to make a sequel better, even though I'm sure they didn't work on this game for 9 years straight. I found the combat here way more enjoyable than in the first game. I liked the different variations of classes and the abilities they had. The machine gunner, for example, if they killed an enemy, they'd be able to get another shot so they could kill another enemy or just give damage to one. The sniper is a little more limited in that you have to reload every turn, but there's an ability you unlock later on that lets you attack again if you kill a specific enemy first. It's just very creative in that regard. It really shakes up the gameplay so you're not constantly doing the same thing over and over again. There's also quite a bit of enemy variety with new and even returning foes, like the ones made of bones that you can shoot through. Although those enemies did get really overwhelming at times, their section felt like a huge difficulty spike, but I managed to pop off some really excellent kills during those battles. It made me feel like I was actually good at the game. Speaking of being good at the game, I started off on the experienced difficulty since I played the first game, although when it did get way too challenging for me, I brought it down to the moderate difficulty, the normal one, I would say, and even though it was easier, it still provided a fair challenge. And I did get a notice during the game saying adjust your difficulty level accordingly, because if the game's too hard, it stops being fun. So if you need to bring that difficulty down, do that. It was a very warm message, I would say, something that really welcomed me into the world of this game, even though I played the first one. It really seemed like the developers knew they were going to get a lot of new players into the SteamWorld franchise with this game, and they wanted it to be a welcoming atmosphere, which is why I also think a game like this is great for those who want to get into turn-based strategy titles for the very first time. For it being set on a 2D plane with a gorgeous 2D animated art style, it does simplify a few things. It's less intimidating than other turn-based strategy games. It also just legitimately feels good to play, which is the case for pretty much every SteamWorld game. Movement feels great, HUD navigation is smooth. They're just overall accessible games, and SteamWorld Heist 2 is no different. And even though I've beaten the main story, to think there's about maybe 15 more hours of content in there for me to explore just makes this even more worth it to pick up. There's so much great content in SteamWorld Heist 2, including new songs by Steam-powered Giraffe that will really make fans happy with this latest installment. SteamWorld games are quality. I've been preaching the good word of SteamWorld games for the past 10 years now, and Heist 2 just proves my point further even more. The only downside to this game is that the menu elements can be very overwhelming at times. The different kinds of upgrades, there's even 3 different currencies too. It kind of just makes things a bit hard to keep track of, but even still, SteamWorld Heist 2 is a fantastic game and an even better sequel that I have to give it a 9 out of 10. But thank you so much for watching my review of SteamWorld Heist 2. If you have any questions for me, put them in the comments section. I will try to answer them. And subscribe to GameXplain and hit that notification bell to stay updated on all things gaming. Until next time, bye-bye.